I think it's really what it is.
Well, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not done with Forward Unto Dawn, Matt. You're stepping on me. Matt's like, let's end the video. I gotta edit this thing.
Yeah. He's partially right there. Hi, I'm Matt with No Market Media.
And I'm Randle. Today, Matt and I are doing something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Something we haven't actually done since I've been back in Michigan. A deeper dive discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about the first episode of the new Paramount Plus series, Halo. Now, we're going to be getting into heavy spoilers.
Yes.
So just get that out of the way. We're going to be talking about spoilers. If you haven't seen it, then do not watch this if you care at all about the series. Gotta get that out of the way. This series is streaming only on Paramount Plus right now. Only has one episode out at the time we're filming this, but there's something like 9 episodes total in this season. So we reserve the right to change our minds. This is just our reaction to the very first episode.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a little bit different. We aren't going to have this structured like we normally do. This is kind of like a free, open topic discussion that Randle and I are going to have on this one. But we will let you know about the show's creators. They are Kyle Killen and Stephen Kane. Killen has worked on Mind Games and Awake, and Kane worked on The Last Ship and The Closer. Now that Randle and I have that out of the way, let's go right into it. I guess if we're going to do like one that we normally do, like first impressions, I mean, makes sense. This is a...
Yeah.
First episode or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The first impressions of the first episode of Halo.
Yep. All right, Randle, so what are your, first impressions, of this?
Abject rage.
Abject rage.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Like, just full-on steaming like this is a pile of doo-doo.
Okay, so I'll elaborate more on it. I want to be fair. My first impressions are that it looks right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be, fair and honest about this. Looks like Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Master Chief looks right. The Pelicans look right. The elites they're kind of a mixed bag. They mostly look right, but there are things that I'll get into quibbles about the elites. I don't mind the special effects. I've seen some people complain. They say that the CGI looks cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in that camp. I'm not really getting that. Maybe turn your Auto Motion Plus off.
Maybe it's a TV setting kind of thing.
Maybe it's a TV, like the effects look really bad.
Yep.
If you have motion smoothing on your TV, but if you're not watching on that panel, I think they look fine.
Mm-hmm.
My first reaction is it looks right, but there are significant changes to the storyline, and they came out ahead of time and they told it.
Yep.
They said this is not following the game storyline.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, bravo, good. You've done better than Warner Brothers knows how to do.
Well, heck, I mean, they even took a step further and were basically like, hey, the show creators haven't really played the games and haven't really, dove into all the, Halo lore and stuff. So at least that's something, up front, they're saying, hey, this is exactly what it is. Don't expect something and, not be upset because you're not getting that thing, I guess. At least they're giving you a heads up thing, because... Yeah, I mean, that would be the first thing I would say, too. A lot of it does, look Halo. I mean, if you're someone that's, vaguely know the game stuff, they do a scene with, the HUD of, Master Chief or whatever, is kind of what you would see if you were playing, a Halo game. I mean, we've seen that with, Doom, Check out our review of Doom. That's one of the best scenes in that movie, kind of thing, and that's what a lot of people tout on. And they do it with this too. So if you're kind of like, hey, for a gamer, we're gonna give you that kind of sense. And I would say, not only look but sound. I think a lot of the sounds are pretty good too.
Yeah, but these sounds are pretty much pulled straight from the sounds of the game.
Yeah.
So
yep.
You didn't. I mean, you're not starting from square one.
Yeah.
When you're talking about that. I guess the other thing though, when I say it looks like Halo, it feels like Halo. Like when the first battle scene looks a lot like and feels a lot like Halo, as you would see. But there's a specific spot in this where I'm like, oh wow, things are going sideways, and that's where it stops feeling and looking like Halo.
Okay.
It yeah, sure, you're wearing the costumes, but this doesn't remind me of the game, or it doesn't make me feel like you guys are respecting the characters at all. And that's probably going to be my biggest hang up. Like when we get into the deeper discussion on side of this, is you guys didn't respect the characters enough.
Me, I think a big part of this too is it's Halo, right? And I think Halo, and we'll talk about this more, I'm going to keep coming back to this. The reason it's Halo is because that's what gets people in the door. Like, you say Halo fans are going to watch it. They're going to bring their significant others along, possibly, to watch it too. But I think really this show, to me, looks more like a sci-fi show wrapped in Halo. And I've said that before about other things too. It's like, I think it's really a sci-fi story first, and it's trying to tell like this sci-fi story and, you know, some, I guess, drama or whatever, that's friction between characters.
That's season 1 of Discovery.
That's season 1 of Discovery.
That's season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. This is a great sci-fi idea. Wrapped in Star Trek. Not well, you know?
Well, here's one thing, too, is whether this does well or not, I mean, we're already getting a 2. There's enough hoopla or whatever ahead of this, or my guess is there's probably enough people signing up for Paramount Plus that they've already been like, yeah, well, season 2 is already coming kind of thing.
I wouldn't bank on that.
I think there is. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they've announced that there will be a season 2 before the first episode even aired.
Why?
Because, well, like I said, I think it's probably because people are signing up for Paramount Plus.
Yeah, but they're signed up for Paramount Plus so they can watch Star Trek. Not so the 4K remaster of the motion pictures comes out.
I did see that.
Like the same day this video comes out, basically.
I hate to tell you, Randle, I don't think they're signing up for Star Trek.
For Star Trek the motion picture. What are you talking about?
I mean, we do, but I don't know if that's really raising the numbers.
I'm going to compare Halo to other adaptations because at the end of the day, this is an adaptation of a video game franchise, you know. And more than that, there's comics and there's books and stuff, but like the video games are mostly canon. That's what we consider canon. Other things like Sherlock does a pretty good job of holding on to like what makes Sherlock Holmes, what makes Watson. And they modernize it. So it's like, okay, they have a reason for differences. Like, yeah, Sherlock is still ostensibly the character Sherlock Holmes. Watson's still Watson. And I'll go further. I'll say, all right, the J.J. Abrams verse, the Kelvin universe in Star Trek. Star Trek fans are no, you know, strangers to alternate timelines, to multiverses and stuff like that. That's very common. Like, all right, this is a different offshoot of this. But the characters of Kirk and McCoy and Spock are still the characters that you expect them to be. Kirk doesn't just all of a sudden become a worthless, do-nothing character. He has that push and that drive, even though he's in a bad start at the beginning of Star Trek 2009. He's still Kirk, and he's still going to act like Kirk and be that character. I'm going to do one more. I know. I'm just trying to hammer it home. DuckTales. DuckTales is a reboot/adaptation of the original. Scrooge McDuck is still a craggly old, you know, adventure-seeking, gold-seeking person. The boys, the nephews, they gave them completely different, like, they gave them real, you know, characters, basically. Huey, Dewey, and Louie are not the same characters as they are, but they are true to the originality of the characters. They're troublemakers. They are always getting in trouble. They're always doing their own things, even, like, whoopsies daisies, you know. The characters that they changed the most, Webby and, you know, Mrs. Beakley, you know, those characters were completely overhauled for that series. And then Donald Duck is just Donald Duck. Donald Duck in DuckTales is just the same character he's always been. So, this brings me all the way back to Halo. Characters. They didn't respect the characters enough in this, in episode 1. These characters do not feel like the same characters from the games.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I mean, I'm not sure how all exactly, like, timeline, like, how close is this to Reach itself? Because I think a big point of comparison would be like Halsey's character, and I would say that is a point I would totally agree on. That does not feel like Halsey really to me, but like, granted, it's the first episode and stuff too. I really think it is kind of like, I go back to sci-fi, they're kind of like placeholders. So I mean, they've said that's the focus of this show is the like characters and stuff, But yeah, I don't feel like they are the characters.
They're right. I don't feel like they're the right characters at all.
Well, another thing we'll kind of go on with too, and I think this is there for a storytelling decision. But man, the first episode we see Master Chief's face.
Oh God.
Which
I wasn't gonna go there so early, but go ahead.
Well, I think that's one of the things going, because to us it's kind of like a different. We never, as players, get to see Master Chief's face, because it's kind of like the whole idea is as you as a player you kind of envision yourself. Now this I think is like a stylized choice. Like they actually want a emotable character that our other characters are interacting with, as opposed to like some faceless person that we never see their face from or whatever. But to me, I think that just highlights one thing, and I messaged you this too. I didn't realize how important Master Chief's voice is.
The voice actor. Yeah.
And that's because in the game, that's all we've really, know of, like, Master Chief is based on his voice. So when the voice doesn't match up, it's a complete different. So in a way, I think you almost have to have the face reveal, because we don't have the voice. So it's like, all right, we want you to attach yourself to, like, this person now, as opposed to like the person you had in the games.
Terrible story decision. I wasn't gonna go there right away, but I guess we are talking about character stuff and how I don't feel they are.
Mm-hmm.
The face reveal is the biggest slap in the face to people who are fans of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain it with another analogy to another. I'm a nerd, okay? Okay, listen. There's two analogies that fit really well.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, Star Wars: The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Yep.
You have gone out of your way, Mandalorian, to prove that you do not, in fact, need that.
Yes.
That's not the attachment point. The fact that Pedro Pascal is doing it.
Yep.
And even when he does, number one, in season 1, he reveals his face to a droid, not a living creature. He's like, I can't, He's like, I'm a droid. Okay. There's a real powerful reason for him to do what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in season 2, he does it again out of absolute sheer necessity of the situation. He cannot avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, The Mandalorian goes out of its way to prove it. There's no need for the emote.
Right.
For the attachment in that. We're attached to this character in the stupid body armor, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I'm going to talk about is Judge Dredd. Matt knew this was coming. He was waiting for it. Judge Dredd never takes his helmet off. Ever. I want to be clear. In the comics, you never see Judge Dredd's full face. In some ridiculous long span of time these comics have been out. He's also a character who ages actually chronologically, so he's like ancient at this age. But anyways. But then, Judge Dredd 1995 or 96 or whatever, Sylvester Stallone's Judge Dredd come out. And he spends almost the entire time without his helmet on.
Yep.
Do you have any idea how painful that is for fans of the comic book series who are like, this character never, ever, ever, ever takes his helmet off and shows people?
Well, and then we go back to it like, why? I mean, it's because you have Sylvester Stallone. But the same thing, too, we go back to, like, Star Wars with The Mandalorian. You have Pedro Pascal, and yet you're covering him up with the helmet the whole time. Really, what I think it is, like, I am not really upset that we're seeing Master Chief's face in a series. Like, I kind of understand it. To me, it's like how soon we're seeing it.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just, because I can see some kind of thing, like, we're trying to say is like, well, all right, is Master Chief, is John, is he the robot program soldier or whatever that just kills him? This is something that Halo gets to or whatever, the game series, but not until like later in building with Cortana.
Not until like Halo 4, Halo 5.
Yep. Where this is like the first episode. I mean, I see he's kind of like taking his helmet off to like show this other character that he's with that he is like a human, that he's not just some like alien or I mean, I guess he is like a science experiment. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like not some grotesque thing or whatever under there that lost humanity, that he does have some humanity. So, me, I think that's what I'm upset about, is that we get it so quickly. Like, I can see that we were going to do that, and I think, from them, they're just like, we want to do other stuff, and to do that stuff, we want to see his face.
It's kind of like I guess the analogy is, rip the Band-Aid off.
You rip the Band-Aid off.
like, hey, we know we're gonna show his face, so let's just get it done. Let's piss off the fans early. And I'm just happen to be one of those fans that's not for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you didn't treat the character with the respect that this is part of this character.
Mm-mm.
The most we ever see of him is like his eyes, you know, and that's if you were beating the game on Legendary.
It's one of those things too. Like Master Chief's face has been so guarded throughout the games and stuff too. And this is like a really bad analogy. But can you imagine if we took like the Tomb Raider movie, and I would not recommend this at all, but can you imagine if we start off with a topless scene from Lara Croft? It's one of those things, like, that was a joke with the Tomb Raider games, was like, oh, you know, if you put in this special code or do something, there's like a topless Lara Croft, which is back when she was like, what, like 64-bit or whatever kind of thing?
No, the PlayStation was 32-bit or 6
something,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it wouldn't be anything anyways if there was, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, can you imagine if they did that for a movie? Like, granted, this is a bad analogy, but I'm just kind of like trying to connect one of those things that's like something that a game did or held, or, you know, that a fan base is kind of like rabid about. And then in this episode, they're like, no, we're just going to reveal his face right at the front.
Yeah. So, I'm not okay with it. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's, again, it's like you said, like, it's not because they did it specifically, it's because they did it so nonchalantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying. I'm sorry. But I'm not going to stop complaining about characters. In fact, since Matt already pulled the Band-Aid off, I'm just going to go there. I'm going to go right there.
Let's see. What is this going to be a new character?
It is.
Is this a new character?
It's a new character. A new character. There's a human collaborator working with the Covenant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Calm down for a second. Or be irate like me. Human collaborator working with the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
The Covenant are in a holy war to eradicate the human race. It is literally sacrilege.
Yeah.
To be working with a human. It just doesn't make sense in the Halo universe. That's my Band-Aid that I just ripped off. Like, there's not respecting the characters, and there's like, hey, we're telling our own story, and then there's like, this is a touchstone, defining thing for the Covenant at this time, and not caring.
Yeah, I get back to it too, and that's one of the things I was getting back to. They are telling a science fiction story wrapped up in Halo. So I think really it's like, you know, having a human in the Covenant makes sense for our story that we're trying to tell. Granted, even probably would not make sense with the game and stuff too. And that's, go back to the original point. You got to go into this if you're interested in watching this. I would say the less you know about Halo, probably the better. Probably the more that you're probably going to enjoy this. That's what I would say.
I mean, maybe. You still have to have a compelling story to tell. And how much of that compelling story is left if you don't care at all about Halo?
Well, because I think we're just getting people in to dip their fingers. I think they're really banking on that what they did do is good enough that even if you're upset about the Halo stuff, that you're gonna stick around. I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna work out or whatever. Like, we're getting in the door with Halo and telling people that we have Master Chief. Because that's the point I would get to too, is like, well, if we have the space reveal, why make it Master Chief? Why not have it any other Spartan? And it's because Master Chief is what's going to get people
in the door, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, this whole story, you know, could be told with a completely silver team, by the way.
Not blue team.
Not blue team.
Yeah, we don't have the same team. Master Chief doesn't have the same
silver team. I'm like, well, fine, go all in on that, or even heaven forbid, you use Noble Team.
We're not on Reach yet.
Well, Noble Team's not necessarily specific to Reach. Noble Team's done things. They're a mix of Spartan 2 and 3.
Yeah.
You know, they've done other missions. When you join Noble Team in Halo Reach, it's as a replacement for someone they lost.
Yep.
Maybe tell that story.
But it doesn't necessarily get people in the door as much as having Master Chief.
You're not wrong, but I just don't care.
Well, I think the other part too is and we haven't really seen this yet, and that's Cortana. I think that's another thing too. They probably like, well, we want Cortana, and we have a hard time explaining Cortana being with other Spartans or whatever. We want that. We want to have that Master Chief Cortana.
There's literally an entire game devoted to it.
Honestly, I could be wrong too. We might not even get like Master Chief Cortana until like the end of this, or at the end of this season, or not at all. Really, could just be like a Cortana Halsey thing.
I don't know. I really don't. Like, we don't. There's no guarantee that we just know Cortana's there because we saw it on a trailer. But there's no guarantee that Cortana's going to be with Master Chief the way that they've started this series out. There really isn't. And maybe they're working on this premise of this is well before Halo, the game. But then I've seen in the trailers, it's like the whole thing is find the Halo ring, win the war.
Find the Halo, win the war.
So you're not really telling a prequel story. You're just telling a different story. And I guess we can... I mean, I'm pissed about all the characters. Keyes and Halsey and you know, Master Chief. I don't think any of them are right, honestly. At least not within the context of this first episode. But now we can talk about story, I guess, a little bit. Because they are telling their own story. But I get the feeling, and this is, you know... This is my opinion, guys. Let me know if you disagree. It's fine. I don't care. You know, as long as it's civil, I don't care. This is almost like, for me, this is like 343 saying, well, this is how we would do it. If we went back to the beginning and we made Halo, this is how we would do it. And I'm like, I don't care, 343. The game that you came up with in Halo 5 is almost universally derided as the worst in the series.
I mean, the younger people, if that's your first Halo, I think they really like Halo 5.
But to be honest, I'm one of the people who I did not mind Halo 5 nearly as much as a huge vocal amount of the fan base did. I thought the story was fine, although you needed a lot of knowledge to get into the game.
I would say what I did when I first played it, the storyline is what bugged me and the gameplay didn't. And then I think after revisiting, it's like the opposite. The story, I'm like, either though I'm not happy with it. I mean, it's telling its story. It's the gameplay that I didn't really like with the campaign and stuff.
But that's my point with the story of this Halo series, and at least this to me feels like 343 revisionist history almost. Like, this is how we would do it, and I'm like, that's not your strength. Your strength is taking other people's stories, George Lucas, and someone else making them. Like, you're pretty good. Halo 4, I thought was a really good game, really good. But it's well known that those story points were left by Bungie. And Bungie tells great stories. Look at Destiny 2. Even if there's other problems, Destiny 2, like...
It's the presentation, maybe, of that story early on.
But, like, it has a really good story, good lore, good backstory. Bungie's really good at that. 343, you're good at making Halo shooting games. Not so good at story, in my opinion.
Granted, too, we don't even know how much interaction 343 has even had with this show, though, too, because, you know, the show creators are saying, like, we don't really care about, you know, Halo lore or whatever. We're just telling our own story focused around characters.
That's not good. Every time someone gets involved with Star Trek who's not a fan, something wrong goes wrong. Something goes wrong. Seriously. The best movies, the best series, the best episodes are all by people who care about care about the universe.
Me, I'm okay if they're like offshoots. That's always been my thing. You know, we'll go to Star Wars on this one. If you want to do new things or whatever, go in new places, that's fine. You know, tell like new stories within the universe or whatever. What I get is we're taking established characters. We're taking Master Chief.
Bingo.
We're taking Cortana, we're taking Halsey, we're taking Miranda Keyes, and we're telling new stories with these already established characters and taking these already established characters in new direction and stuff. So me, I probably would prefer like just a Halo show that has new characters and new directions, and maybe we just mention those other characters later. Because, you know, if people are really interested in like Miranda Keyes and stuff, You can read stuff on that. They're in the games and stuff too. We already have that stuff. We don't need to retread that ground necessarily. But we're not. We're like changing that ground, I feel like.
But Matt, that doesn't get people in the door.
It's true. Exactly.
Exactly.
Back to what I was saying before.
Back to what you already said.
Yep.
I 100% agree. Do this new exciting story thing that you want to do. You just don't do it with existing characters. I will go back and hammer on my Noble Team thing. This would have been a really interesting, like, the storyline that they tell in episode 1 could have been a real interesting Noble Team storyline. And that's an established team that the fan base really does care for, even though they're all in one game. People don't know, like, the general viewer doesn't know Noble Team, but if you don't work with your hardcore fan base to make them happy first, you usually fail. Cowboy Bebop, perfect example. It strays just too far away from the source material. It doesn't matter that the story was fine. It doesn't matter that the aesthetic was decent enough. It didn't matter because Spike and Faye didn't feel like Spike and Faye. Vicious didn't feel like Vicious. So take characters who are a little less established, Noble Team, put them in this situation, and tell the story of them finding, some Forerunner artifacts, instead of it all being about Halo and Master Chief on Halo. That to me is like my fan pitch. It's too late, obviously. No one's listening to me, but I think that would be better.
Really, what I think is, I think you can make all those changes if all those changes are compelling. Like, you can remake it if it is, and I think that is the big point for me on this is, at least with this first episode, maybe it changes. It hasn't. The new changes haven't really gripped me that I'm interested. Like, I'm at the point where, like, hey, we have this human person with a covenant. That could be something that's really interesting. I want to explore that. I don't think that it was really done in a way that really makes me all that interested. Granted, there's probably some people that are. I mean, if that's something like, hey, I want to see that or whatever, let us know and stuff, because I think there probably are some people, but for me personally, I don't think that the changes are good enough that, like, really said, like, oh, I'm, like, really invested, like, this is the new thing. It's only one episode, so I'll probably give it a few more episodes at least before I, start giving a thing on it. But so far, I'm not, like, gripped into this.
These are really gut reactions to the first episode, okay? Yep. Things could get better. They could get better, honestly. And not everything's bad. Like I said, it looks like Halo. They did a very good job. Now, I will go back, because that was my first reaction. I'm going to go back to some things that bothered me. I'm sorry, not everything's bad, but, like, overridingly, I have just, like I said, abject anger at the way they did things.
So that's how you want to play it, old man? No dessert? Oh, sure. We'll eat our dinner right after you eat this. Ah!
Why is there, like, a 2000 Chevy Tahoe?
It's
not even hidden, though.
No. It's straight up product placement that does not make sense. Like, I don't think there's any explaining.
There's no excuse.
There's no reason that a Chevy Tahoe should live, 300-400 years, however many.
This is the 26th century.
Yeah.
This is 2550.
Like, there is no even reason, like, in all that time that someone's like, well,
why would I take it to
have
this
nostalgia
planet?
Or something, like, we recreated it. Like, there's no reason to even create a modern, what today would be modern.
This is my complaint about production stuff. Is what I'll say. Like, this is production level problems. There's no reason for a Chevy Tahoe from the 2000s to be on some random colonist planet.
Yeah, that mines water or whatever.
That mines heavy water, hydrogen. It's like 400 years old.
Yeah.
It's just, listen, guys, right now, here on Earth, the car is like 120 years old most, like maximum. And those 100-year-old cars are rare. Real rare. There's not going to be one up there. But I'm not just going to complain about that. Like, production-wise, there's a shot of a Hummer. And it's like, all right, I get it. It's kind of, you've turned it into like a flatbed, like for a mounted turret and everything. And I'm like, all right, I get it. It's supposed to be a military-ish vehicle, but it's still obviously a Hummer. Doesn't make sense.
I mean, it's just product placement. They got money to put it in, so they put it in.
It's dumb.
It is dumb.
It's just dumb. Because then later, you see some really awesome warthogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yep, that looks, feels, drives like a warthog.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that before in the like mini-series. It's Forward Unto Dawn. Yeah, I think. I want to say it's Forward Unto Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have a warthog, and it looks and feels like a warthog. And I'm like, that had like no budget. I'm like, those are production level problems where someone's like, yeah, they gave us money and we're going to do it.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, but it completely takes the viewer out of any realism.
10 million an episode is what they put into this. 10 million episodes. So yeah, it really is just like, hey, well, they're offering us money. This is a
stupid.
This is a thing we're gonna stick it in here.
It's dumb. I'm sorry. I'm not, and it's not because it's GM, guys. I understand. I'm more of a Ford person.
Oh, there's a Mustang! It's awesome!
It's awesome! Yeah. You see that Mustang there? Of course it no.
It's an F-150. Of course it would last 400 years.
It's simply because it just doesn't make sense.
Yep, it doesn't.
But I'm not going to complain just about that because the next complaint I have, there's a couple of production complaints.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably going to be as long as the episode. AK-47s. Guys, this is 400, 500 years in the future. Now, Halo is well known for, we still use projectile weapons as humans. Fine, that's fine. I don't care about that. But they're obviously different. They're obviously like modern in the context of the game. The assault rifle is doesn't look like assault rifles we use today specifically. All these colonists have like today weapons. I'm like, can you imagine if we were using the same weapons in 2020 that we used 400, 500 years ago?
And not as recreation, like reenactment kind of thing. It's like, no, we're actually using these as like trying to fight.
We'd be using ball pistols. You know, like, guys, that takes me out of the series.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you know, they're a ragtag group. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Those weapons don't make sense here. Mm-hmm. They do not work in a series set this far in the future.
Yep. I'm going to go in another direction now a little bit. I am a little bit interested that we are looking at kind of like the colonies more and the friction between the colonies and the UNSC, because that's a big thing too. I think like Halo, like the games and stuff go over a little bit. I think we see it probably the most in Reach or whatever. But I think that is an interesting dynamic that also could be for a show. You know, you're already trying to fight this war against the Covenant. You're trying to bring together a fractured humanity, I guess, or human race to fight against a common enemy is really what it is. And there's still that friction in there. Like, we get that with Miranda Keyes, where she's basically like, hey, you know, this is the time for all of us to come together and stuff. Our new character, she's basically saying, like, no, my dad died for this. I still hold true to my ideals. Just because there's this covenant, I'm not going to forget. You know, we're not going to lose our resolve over that. Which I kind of like that.
Which is
kind of dynamic.
I mean, it's nothing that... It doesn't go away after the Covenant War. Mm-hmm. After the Covenant War in the games, there is still friction between colonists and, like, what is really kind of an authoritarian government regime in the UNSC. Mm-hmm. I did think that was a little weird. Like, I understand tackling that angle at this point in the storyline, basically. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I did think at the same time, we're kind of at the point where the UNSC isn't treating them as insurgents anymore. But these characters are all treating them as insurgents.
Yep.
Where, like, there's an admiral she's in the game, or, well, I think it's a he in the game, actually. But I could be wrong about that, where she's just like, he just gave a rifle to an insurgent. And I'm like, at this point, you guys have way, way bigger fish to fry with the Covenant. Mm-hmm. You're not treating the colonists like insurgents anymore.
Yep.
You're trying to get them on your side.
Yep.
And these characters aren't doing that. So I'm like, it's interesting they're going that route, and Miranda Keyes is talking about, like, unity, but then, while the whole, like, the upper admiralty of the UNSC is like, nah, they're still insurgents. I'm like, you got more stuff to worry about.
I think it's really interesting that we're already playing a rogue Master Chief dynamic in the first episode.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, like I said, too, this goes back... broken record. It'd be interesting if it was another, Spartan going rogue. But we're already having Master Chief going rogue in the first episode. Not granted that, Master Chief has some things that he wants to do or whatever in this. And Master Chief has, kind of, I guess, done his own thing or whatever. But
it took 5 games to get there.
Yeah. It's interesting to see if they're going to somehow bring Master Chief back into the fold. Or we're going to continue having a Master Chief rogue. I mean, heck, we have Halsey and Silver Team or whatever basically backing up Master Chief a little bit already. It's weird that we're doing this dynamic already.
In all honesty, that's the most Halsey thing that Halsey does. It's like the Spartans, the UNSC thinks they have control of the Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
No. Halsey has always been the end game for Spartan 2s. As far as Spartan 2s are concerned, Halsey's like God. They do what Halsey says.
She's mom, at least.
She's mom. They literally call her mother.
George.
George does, yeah. So.
George, it's been too long.
Mom.
But yeah, that's the most Halsey thing that Halsey does is even if they're trying to take out Chief, they're not friendlies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Doesn't matter if they're Marines. Doesn't matter. Which I agree with, honestly. But back on Matt's part about already Master Chief's going rogue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a fan.
I just would say, in general, as a sci-fi show or whatever, I'm okay with different things going on. I don't like the fact that we are incorporating, the face characters and stuff and telling, kind of doing changes or whatever. I am interested to see how this goes as a sci-fi series. I'm not really opposed to the show, but I'm not really for. Nothing so far has really gripped me into this kind of thing. Some of the visuals and stuff are cool, and it's cool to see that. But the story, I'm just not into it. Other Halo stuff that we've seen before that's lesser, I already mentioned, Forward Unto Dawn. I think that actually gripped me a little bit more than what this has so far.
You know what was cool about Forward Unto Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
Was almost the entire series is new characters, fresh out of water characters. Cadets in that case.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Covenant shows up. And then Master Chief shows up.
Yep.
And even more interesting about it is the people who are doing that. I don't remember if that was Bungie still at the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, obviously Microsoft's always involved because Microsoft owns the intellectual property rights.
Mm-hmm.
Is when the other Spartans take their helmets off and they're like, how old are you? And it's that's classified.
Mm-hmm.
I love that scene. Because
kids.
It shows 2 or 3 really important things. Number one, the Spartans, they're bigger, stronger, faster,
mm-hmm.
but they're young at that point. They're still very young. It also shows, Spartans can take their helmets off. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that's stopping Spartans from taking their helmets off.
It's not like Mandalorian where it's the code.
Yeah. No, they can totally take their helmets off.
I think what the difference is and why it's Master Chief taking his helmet off as a Halo series fan is because it changes the relationship that the audience has with this character. I think it's really what it is.
Well, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not done with Forward Unto Dawn, Matt. You're stepping on me. Matt's let's end the video. I gotta edit this thing.
Yeah. He's partially right there.
But at the end of Forward Unto Dawn, here's these other Spartans, helmets off.
Mm-hmm.
Who does not take their helmet off?
Master Chief.
Who is laser they're on the Pelican, I think, at that point,
mm-hmm.
or Condor or whatever. I don't remember that particular detail, but they're just all in there oh my god, we just barely survived.
Yep.
You have these other couple of Spartans, blue team by the way, Spartans, who take their helmets off, no big deal. They're young, blah blah blah. Master Chief, he's still on watch.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking out the back with his gun, helmet on, he's just ready. This is that character.
Yep.
And you've disrespected him.
This is different. They are doing something completely different with this. And at least they're telling you in the first episode, hey, we have humans with the Covenant. Something new. We're going somewhere in that. Master Chief's taking his helmet off. Something we've never done really before that we're going to do with this. So at least it's telling us at the beginning, this is completely different.
Okay. All right. Sorry, this one's been long. I mean, there's some more production things that I could complain about, but I won't.
This is one episode too.
One
if we
episode.
make it through the first season, imagine what that could be.
Man. I think that you used the right word.
Mm-hmm.
If we make it through the season.
Well, that's it too. Like, so far, it does sound like you're as big on this.
I almost didn't know if I want to watch episode 2.
Episode 2. Me, I think I'll give it at least 2 more episodes.
I mean, as with most things, I have a morbid curiosity. Like, Raised by Wolves Season 3 is a perfect example. Like, You know what? Season 2 might not have ended on the best note, but, like, I don't care. I want to know.
Me, actually, with that one, I don't really want to know.
I want to know. I have a morbid curiosity. And that is right now the only thing that's going to get me to watch the extra episodes of Halo right now.
Yep.
Things could get better. Like, these are really just visceral reactions to a strong first episode. You know, like, we made changes and we're putting it out there. So we'll see where they go from here.
I will say one thing. I did watch this like the morning it came out. Like, oh yeah, I want to see what they're doing with Halo. I've heard some things, some people might not like it, whatever. I'm going to see what it is. I'm probably do not have that same, gusto or whatever for the next episodes. I'll get to them. I'll see them when they come out. I don't know that it's going to be like day of, morning of, yeah, I got to watch the next episode.
Nah, probably not. Probably not. So, honestly, let us know what you guys think down in the comments below, especially if you made it this far into this, probably longer video. We are interested to know what fans think, what non-fans think. Do you have any experience with Halo at all? Hey, we appreciate these comments. We want to know. And if you think we're right, sound off down below. If you think we're wrong, sound off down below.
Honestly, we really want to hear if you've seen this and don't have anything with Halo, because I'm really interested to see people who don't know anything really about Halo think about the show.
I have a sample size of 1 for that right now, and they did not
like it
at all. At all. All right, this has been good. I like this discussion, but for now, I'm Randle here with No Market Media. I'll see everyone next time.
And I'm Matt. Have a good day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.